Many of us face immense challenges in our lives. I want to uncover secrets and principles to building a life filled with purpose, not weighed down by hardship. I'm Kirsty, your host in this journey. Each episode, I'll be talking to different people, sharing their stories and practical steps to help us to design a life that we love. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Ron Myers, all the way from California. So welcome, Ron. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
So, Ron, you're the up-and-coming author of the Relationship Success Handbook, How to Get Rid of Your Problems, Not Your Partner. That sounds very interesting.
Yes, because most people are looking for their partners as the problem. And that's really the whole idea of the title, is get rid of your stuff. And then you can look and see if your partner is a problem at all. Because a lot of times when people work on themselves, they realize they were the one bringing more of the issues to the relationship than the partner was.
Yeah, that relates to all areas of life, doesn't it? It's not just relationships. I can see in my own life how many times when I look at myself and my own issues, that eliminates half of my problems, which I potentially am blaming someone else for. So I love it. We're going to talk more about that as we get into the interview. Do you want to start? Do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself? Let's say your top 3 things that you like to do with your time. How do you spend your time?
A lot of my time is reading, listening to different material that helps me understand human beings a little bit better, because I'm always trying to understand myself better. I guess that's why I really do it.
Yeah.
And then I enjoy what we're doing, talking with people, sharing ideas. A part of that, I guess, is the same thing I said above about the reading or listening. It gives me more ideas. And so I enjoy that, talking with people. And then the third thing would be I enjoy sitting on the beach and riding my bike, just totally relaxing.
Yeah, I can imagine there's quite a bit of that when you're in California, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your journey. So you've been writing this book. What inspired you to write your book in the first place?
Well, what inspired me to actually write the book was I was actually going towards the self-development, doing more like the Tony Robbins, Les Brown type of stuff. Family and friends really pushed me towards the relationships because they were saying, and they admitted it, they said, well, I'm really doing it for selfish reasons because I have my own relationship issues. So I want you to give me some insights. So I was like, that's good. And I didn't feel like it's getting me off track, because a part of relationships is taking care of your stuff, as the title says. You're a major part of that relationship, so we have to get you cleaned up first. And so they just kind of went hand in hand. I didn't have a challenge with it. And then especially as I started looking at the different material that's out there on relationships, and it really inspired me that this book is needed, because a lot of the information that's being shared, I believe it's just bad information. And I think it's actually contributing to relationship issues instead of helping people actually get rid of them. Because a lot of things they're teaching people is how to manipulate your partner. And I'm like, that's not what a relationship is about.
It's a very, very interesting way of looking at it. So in your personal life, were you struggling with a relationship? Did you have something that triggered you to start down this path?
Well, actually everything, I won't say I had, we had our challenges, but we worked through them together. And I guess that's why I felt we're together for like 32 years.
Wow.
And we dated for 9 years. And the main reason, because a lot of people, when they hear you dated for 9 years, I used to have a lot of women would tell me that. They'd be like, I would have dropped you a long time ago. There's no way in the world I would have dated for 9 years.
It's a long time.
That is a long time. But I always laugh and I tell them, and I said, that's probably why you and I wouldn't date. I said, because you never asked why we dated 9 years. You just instantly jumped on and said you wouldn't have waited 9 years. And I said, but once they find out, a lot of the 9 years was because we went through a lot of the racial issues up front, because she was Japanese. And so there was a lot of the disowning that was going to take place because you're outside of your race. So we had to deal with a lot of that. So first off, we had to make sure we were committed to each other before you start talking about marriage. You know what I mean? So we had a lot of that battle at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay. And so then moving past that, you've spent 9 years together, you then got married, and how did things go there? What really fueled you to want to write this book?
Well, I actually lost her a couple of years ago to cancer. She
Okay.
fought cancer for 17 years. And so again, it made me start looking at relationships a little bit differently. I used to, when you hear people talking about their relationships, I used to always look at it as negativity. It's like, man, I don't want to hear all the drama and he said this, she said that. And it's like, I don't want to hear it. So I stayed away from it. But after losing Terry, because I thought she was going to be that woman that at the age of 100, her and I were still walking on beaches together, sitting on park benches.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of the vision I had. But because I lost her, she was 49, it made me kind of look at relationships a little bit different and said, you know what, people need to get more involved in their relationships. So that's when I started really looking around and I was like, wow, people aren't even participating in their relationships. Most people are so self-absorbed. And to me, I tell people self-absorbed is something different when it's all about me. That's not what I'm teaching when I'm telling people get rid of your problems. I'm just saying you have to be comfortable with who you are in your life to make a relationship work. But I'm not saying going into the relationship and it's about me. Does that make sense? Where it's like everything you do is to help me. And unfortunately, a lot of people in relationships like that.
Yeah. So what about when it's more one partner who's focused on turning things around and making the better for a better future together, and the other partner's not so engaged in that? Do you have any practical steps, or what would be your advice to the person who's really putting in the work there?
I'm a firm believer in addressing yours. That's why I say get rid of your problems. Get your stuff together first. And one or two things are going to happen. Either the person's going to get on board and come along with you as those changes start to occur, or chances are you may not be together. Because I know some people question, they go, Ron, is it that you don't believe in divorce? I said, I prefer you to work it out, because obviously there's a reason that you guys are together to begin with. And so that's what I prefer for you to do. But I will never tell a person to stay in any relationship where they're either physically or mentally abused. And so my thing is, in that drive to get yourself at peace, that's when you're going to start to see that either they're going to come aboard or they're going to start going in the other direction. And chances are they'll walk away, because I'm a firm believer you attract what you put out.
Yeah,
so I believe go ahead.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You attract many, many things into your life, good and bad. So I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm like, so the key is, if that person is supposed to stay in your life, they will. And if they're not, they won't. And they may be the person that be the person to walk away, because they see the changes that are going in you and they don't want to go that direction. They just go, I'm out of here. But that's when it comes into play where people want to beg people to stay. And I don't buy into that, and people will teach you that you need to fight. And I'm going, I don't believe in trying to get anyone to stay anywhere they don't want to be. And I'm like, you be here with me because you choose to, not because I have to beg you, not because if I have to do all that, then I'm fighting you against your own wishes. You know what I mean? And it's like, because I remember there was a song, the guy was saying, I tried to tell her I want to leave, but she started crying, and and that's basically what he was saying. And so he was staying. And I was like, no, that's not good. I'm saying, because that means he's staying because of the crying. It's not because he wants to be there.
Yeah, see this so often.
Exactly. So the chances of him being faithful are probably very slim. And that's why I tell people, you got to understand that, because now he's not staying because he wants to be there. He's staying there for you, because he doesn't want to hurt your feelings. No, I'd rather him hurt my feelings and go than to stay here. And then later I find out all of it was a lie to begin with.
Yeah, I do agree with a lot of what you're saying. I just want to backtrack a little bit. I would love to delve into more about your actual journey. So you dropped a bit of a bombshell in there, which you said it and then moved on, and I'm kind of still recovering from that your wife had cancer for 17 years.
Correct.
And that you've just lost her recently, a couple of years ago. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey and how you think that's impacted where you are now, your future course? Tell us about some of the things that were really difficult about that. I mean, obviously that's a really difficult situation all around, but can you just give us a bit more substance to that story?
Yes, and it's something, it's a rare, I don't know why it slips my mind, but it's like a thymomas cancer or something, but it was located a mass right by her heart. And And so it was very hard to get to, but fortunately for her, it was actually, even though it's rare, it was a slow growing cancer. And so that's why she was able to make it through the 17 years. And even from when she left, most people didn't even know that she had cancer. And so they were shocked to hear the story. So, and then again, a lot of people would even ask, once they found out, they would ask me and her, why didn't we tell everyone about the journey as we were going through that? So they could help us and be there to support and that kind of stuff.
So why didn't you tell about your journey?
Yeah, the reason I didn't share and Terry kind of was in agreement is because we just felt that when you tell those that you love, they'll actually end up handicapping you. And by that, I'm saying my wife was a great cook. And every event, people are putting in their order, bring this meal, bring that meal. And I asked them, I said, how many of you guys would have asked her to cook if you knew that she had the cancer? And all of them were like, I wouldn't have. I said, exactly. And because we go to parties and stuff, we're kind of like the last couple usually to leave, because my wife is one of those that if we leave your house, we're going to make sure your house is clean before we leave, because she didn't think it's right that everybody runs out of the house when the party's over and they leave all that on the person who's giving the party. And I said, how many of you guys would have let her stay and clean up? And they're all like, we wouldn't. I said, you see what I'm saying? And those are just two examples of what would happen. And I said, so even though you're doing it out of love, I mean, I understand why you're doing it, but you would defeat her and you would stop her from actually living. An example of that happened even when she was in the hospital the last 7 weeks. I think it was like the week before she left, or maybe it was 2 weeks. I think it was a week before, but she actually asked me, she was like, dear, can you open up, I think it was Jell-O or, the food cups, how they give you in a hospital. And she's like, dear, can you open this for me? And I said, no. I said, this is what you need to do. Open it as far as you can, feed yourself. And if you need help, then I will join in. She opened it up and ate the whole thing on her own. And I just sat there and it just hit me. And I said, that was my point. That was the reason we kept it away from family, for that exact same reason, because she had given up. You know what I mean? She stopped fighting. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I always pushed her to fight. So I didn't treat her any differently, even though I knew she had the cancer. It's like we were going hiking, we were doing other stuff, and she'd do what she can. If she got tired, we'd stop, let her rest, and we'd keep doing what we're doing. But I didn't treat her any differently, because I wasn't going to make it seem like it was a handicap or it was a disability, which unfortunately a lot of people do. And I think you actually kill a person in the process of doing that, because you're not allowing them to fight.
Did she ever talk about that with you? Maybe later on in the process, did she talk about how that impacted her journey, her cancer journey, and how she connected with that?
In terms of what do you mean?
Did she recognize that, do you think? Do you think she recognized that you were still treating her the same, pushing her to do as much as she could, but available to help her if she couldn't?
Yeah, she's always made that clear to me. And that's what she told me. She said, I love you so much. And she even said that like 2 or 3 days before she left. And of course, it got me a little teary-eyed. She was just staring. She was just sitting there staring at me. And I looked over at her and she's just like, I love you so much. But I think that's a lot of it is for that reason, because I wouldn't let her stop fighting.
Yeah. Tell me about some of the early days when she was first diagnosed. Did you as a couple go into a little bit of a crisis time, or how did you deal with news that potentially this was going to be a life-changing illness, and just that the rest of your future was on a different course from then on in? How did you deal with that?
I think a lot of it, again, is because of my personality. And of course, I think you complement each other in a relationship if you allow each other to work together. And because I'm always that person that I always believe in the best, I think I helped her see that. And we always believed the entire time, even when she was in the hospital, we were still expecting her to come out. And we just always felt that she would beat it. So it wasn't a thing, even when she first got it. And we found out, I even did a prayer, and I told her about it. I did a prayer, and I was saying, Lord, I said, give it to me. I said, pass it over to me. I said, take it away from her, give it to me. I said, because I'm going to kick cancer behind. I said, cancer can't stand, it ain't got a chance against me. But that's when it kind of hit that we all have our different journeys. And that was her journey. That's why I wasn't given the cancer, because that wasn't my battle. We all have our different battles, but I do think that was my role in the relationship, is to never allow her to play the woe is me, why is me, which she didn't. And I don't know if it's because of the input, but people were amazed. Even when they came to the hospital and saw her the last 7 weeks, people just sat there and shook their head. They're like, she is so upbeat. And it's like, why is she in the hospital? And it's, I mean, we even had lunch, the whole family, the day before she left. And it's just, and I mean, that's another story. We can get into it a different time, but it's, you know, the whole way that played out, we believe was, it was a blessing. I mean, because she didn't wake up, and family had to come there because we thought she had already passed away. And ended up, they came from work and all that, and we actually got to spend the entire day with her because she woke up. So it allowed her to sit there and spend that whole day with her family. You know, me, and then my parents got to come see her later. And so she had the whole day where everybody that she wanted to have conversations with, she was able to share, you know, things she wanted taken care of, the way, you know, anything that she wanted to share. Like I was even telling one of the family members, they're like, no, she's going to beat this. And I said, you know what? She told them to keep her off the machine. Therefore, she is leaving. And I said, you need to go and make sure you have a conversation with her and have no regrets. And that person was able to have that conversation with her. And when we actually took her home the next day, and she did pass away at home, that person was in the living room with her when she actually passed away. And when she took her last breath. And so this person told me, the first thing he said when I walked into the room is he looked at me and he said, no regrets. And so I think that was, so again, that was my role in this entire walk, I think, is to get her to keep fighting and to believe that something's going to happen. And I don't know if the cancer is what blocked us from her to be able to have kids. I know they said it was like in her tubes or something like that. But it is what stopped us from actually adopting, because we did all the artificial stuff. You know, we tried everything. And I've always mentored, you know, different people, and I still do. A lot of the younger generation. Well, I should say adults too, because I got a lot of them that I talk to also. But we had thought about the adoption, but she wanted to make sure that she beat the cancer. She didn't want to bring a child into that picture.
Yeah. I can understand that. It sounds like you've been on such a journey, both together and I can imagine on your own since her passing. I want to look at two different sides of the story. So can you tell me maybe some of the darker times, the harder times, your strategies for dealing with them, and then flipping over the coin and looking at some of the more positive things and some of the things that you've learned through your experience that have been really able to set you up and create some good things in your life, or to be able to help other people?
Okay. And the dark side would be just her having to call a person that has such life, having to have something like this that was restricting some of the things that she wanted to do. Even that, you know, a lot of people didn't see the times where she couldn't breathe, because when it was towards the end, she was actually functioning on one lung. And a lot of people didn't know that. So there were certain things that we did, like if the weather wasn't right, she couldn't breathe and we'd have to leave. And one of the alternative things that she tried is some moxie or something, I guess you put on your hands and you light it, and it would make, I guess, your blood circulate or do something. But she would have to do a lot of those different things that people didn't see. She'd have to set her clock every couple of hours, you know, to take different things. I mean, even during the middle of the night, she'd have to get up, you know, and go take stuff. And it's just, so she couldn't even get, like, you know, what they call a regular night's sleep, 6 hours or whatever, 8 hours, whatever the case may be, is because she was always up doing the taking stuff just to try to get her health back. And so those are the things for me that was tough to watch. But at the same time, you watched her spirit. That's what I said. But if you watched her mentality, you didn't know that. That's why people had no idea. And that's why I tell them I walked it out with her. So I did get to see that stuff. But because other people didn't, they were shocked to hear that she was sick. And some people were, even at the end when she said, I'm going home, people were amazed at that. And they're like, why isn't she continuing to fight? And I'm like, she's been fighting. I said, you guys just haven't seen it, but she's been fighting for 17 years.
It's a long time, isn't it? Yeah.
It's a very long time, very long time.
So what did you learn out of those dark times, or how were you able to pull together to turn it around? What are some strategies for, perhaps there's some other listeners who are here listening to this in a similar situation? What would you suggest that they could potentially consider to do to try and improve their situation?
Well, the main thing is to be there and support in whatever way that person needs, because different people are going to handle things differently. They might not be as strong as Terry was, from the mental perspective. And so you have to handle, and I just believe that in every situation, you have to handle every case depending on who it is you're dealing with. And so in her case, she was willing to have that kind of coaching, that pushing and to keep her fired up and keep her fighting. That's what but I think that's really all you can do, is just be there and be supportive, allow them to be themselves, and just be there, whatever they need. Now, for me, a lot of it has to do with the mindset and the way you see things. I tell everybody, we actually control our thought process. Mm-hmm. And again, people don't want to hear that because they want to say, well, I just couldn't control my emotions. And I said, you have total control over your emotions. Mm-hmm. Because there's a thing that's even in the book. I tell people there's 4 steps to the thought process. One is you have thoughts, which I tell people don't even try to control the world. Everybody, most of the people that I hear, they say, you got to get control of your thoughts. I go, that's impossible. Leave it alone. Don't worry about it. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because you and I are giving new thoughts now. Just through our conversation, here's some new thoughts. You're throwing at me, I'm throwing at you. And it's like, so if I try to control all those thoughts, I drive myself crazy. Mm-hmm. And then you go listen to the news or the radio or, just your regular conversation. So thoughts are coming at you all the time. I said, don't worry about that. The second step I said is the stories that you write with those thoughts. That's the part you have control over. Because if we can, and I use the example of like a computer. If you type a certain subject into the browser, then everything on that particular topic will pop up. And so it's the same thing with you and I. If we're talking about relationships or we're talking about cancer, the stuff about cancer is what's going to show up on the screen. Now, based on all that information, we get to start writing stories about our perception of cancer or our perceptions of relationships. And then depending on the stories we choose to write with that information, it's going to control our emotions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. How much do you think our thoughts affect our future?
I'll repeat that.
So how much would you say our thoughts affect our future?
It's everything. I believe you're always creating your future every moment. And that's something I share with people too. Every moment you change your life by the decisions that you make at this moment. A lot of people live in the past and they think the past dictates the future. And I said, no, the past is just that. It's over with. It's done. You take the past and learn from it. It's the same thing I tell people in relationships. Your past relationships are helping prepare you for your future relationships. Don't look at them as negatives and they're bad and all that kind of stuff. Take from them the good stuff, and then the bad stuff, flip it around and go, well, what do I want? Because like if a person's rude, I don't want a person that's rude. I want a person that's very understanding. Well, that becomes the new part of your journey. I'm looking for someone that's understanding. So even the negatives help me get clear on what I actually want. So again, your decisions you make every moment is going to determine the future.
How do you feel about your future now that you've been through a rocky time, a rocky past? You've come out of that. You're in a transition phase right now. How do you feel about your future?
I believe it's incredible. I think that the world hasn't seen anything yet. I think the beginning, again, because I can take everything from the past and learn from all the different things that have occurred. And I think, of course, that should make my life better if I use the information. I think the only reason people's future wouldn't be bright if they're living in the past and they stay stuck there. But if you take all that information from the past and say, but I'm going to use all this for my future, then how could your future not be brighter?
Mm. Do you have any strategies for creating a brighter future? Like things that you do to try and bring that into place?
Yeah, some of the things that I tell people definitely recommend is, one of the things is I tell people, get in front of the mirror every day. Tell yourself you are enough, you're worthy, deserve your desires. That's one of the things I do, because most people's issues are how they feel about themselves.
What if they don't believe that in the first place? How do you get somebody who doesn't believe that to stand up and speak to the mirror? I hear this question all the time.
Well, the key is do it anyway, because you have to understand the brain doesn't try to interpret. The brain's only job is, well, first off, the brain's only job is to protect you. Your mind is the one that's taking in all this different information, but it's not trying to distinguish good, bad, right, or wrong. We do that as human beings because we put our rules and stuff out there. It's not trying to figure that out. So whatever you tell it, it buys into. I tell people, understand all the beliefs you have now are just things that you've repeated to yourself enough until you bought into them. Mm-hmm. And so now you call them the beliefs, and now people want to kill people and beat people and do all of the crazy stuff about their beliefs that they made up anyway. And again, some of them may be accurate for you, but they're not accurate. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does. Okay, so number one is get up in front of the mirror. What would be some other things?
Take at least an hour a day for yourself. I tell you, and then in that time, be grateful for what's going on in your life. But you have to take an hour at least for yourself. And a lot of people feel guilty when they hear that. And they go, but I got my kids and I got, you know what? You have to take care of you first. And I use the example because I tell, like a mom, I said, if you're angry and you go and approach your child, you're an angry person talking to your child. How is that a benefit to your child? Does it make sense? So I'm saying, so the key is get your stuff taken care of where you can go talk to your child at peace, because I'm at peace with who I am, and you guys will have a better conversation.
Yeah, I can hear, I've got a lot of voices in my head right now, a lot of questions. Yeah, not like that, but I can hear listeners are probably thinking, well, I have a family, I've got the kids and I'm working and all these things. How on earth am I supposed to take an hour?
Right.
So this is something that
yeah, you could even split it up. You could do it 15 minutes, 15 minutes here, 15 minutes. So it doesn't have to be a straight hour.
Exactly.
15 minutes earlier in the morning so I can have that 15 minutes, or I'm gonna go to bed 15 minutes later. I'm gonna cut my lunchtime at work to where 15 minutes of that is specifically for me. It's like, but fit that hour in the day. But what's gonna happen is the more of that time that you do actually do that, you will find the hour. And the reason I say that is I used to do this example, and it's good that you brought that up. I used to use this in my meetings, whenever I went up front, I would tell people, I said, I know you guys are so busy, you don't have this time, and I said, so let's do an example. I said, who in here is extremely busy? And we get the person that I got so much on my plate. I go, okay. I said, so let's break this down. I said, how many hours you spending at work? And they'll tell me the 8 hours. And how much you spending at lunch? And they'll tell me how much you spend at lunch. How much you for getting dressed? And we'd figure it out, because what we did is we'll take the 24 hours in a day times the 7 days a week, which is what I think 168 going off the top of my head. But I think it's 168 hours a week you have. And then you start subtracting all that time that you actually have, the 40 hours for work, the 2 hours to get dressed times 5 is 10. And we subtract that. And I can give people extra time. It was funny. They say, well, I have a half-hour lunch. And I go, we're going to give you an hour lunch at work instead of half hour. And I said, so instead of you only spending 2.5 hours on lunch in the week, we're actually giving you 5 hours. So I take all this time, and then we get through, and they always have 50 to 60 hours left over. I said, what are you doing at that time? And they sit there and go, okay, so I missed something. Something's missing. I know. It's like the kids, okay, the babysitter I got. And I said, because as human beings, we waste so much time and we don't even recognize it.
That is true. Yeah. I work with quite a few, mostly women actually, who struggle with time. They're usually mums with kids and jobs and everything, trying to put it all together. And that's a really tough thing to do. And, on the outset, it really does look like they have no time. But like you said, breaking it down into these tiny little slots. And then what I tend to see is that as they do that, the small slots of time become the thing that they prioritize the most in their day. And as they prioritize them, they're able to open up bigger slots
Yes.
and move other things around to a lower priority. So I think there's lots of ways of attacking this.
Exactly.
I
And
absolutely love the concept. Yep, love it. So you've got talking to yourself in the mirror, affirmations, saying positive things that your subconscious starts to engage with, and then they start to come to fruition in your life.
Right.
You're talking about finding little pockets of time for yourself daily where you can switch off and just focus, connect with yourself, and allow yourself to breathe a bit.
Yeah.
What's one more strategy?
The other one is just what we had talked about a little bit earlier, and I said is understand that you do control your emotions, because if you realize that you control that, then you get to realize that you actually control your life. And an example I use, I tell people, if you write sad stories, then you're going to be sad. And if you write depressing stories, you're going to be depressed. The same thing, if you write happy stories, you're going to be happy. It's all based on the stories that you write. And I use the example of when I go and sit on the beach. I said, I see all the couples and I can imagine Terry would be there with me and how that would be pleasurable. But I could sit there and go, I can't believe it. I mean, why did she go at age 49? And Lord, why would you do this to me? And I could go through all those different conversations and get myself totally depressed. But I created that. I can't sit back and go, the world did that. No, listen to the stories that you're writing. You created that emotion. So then I could come back and go, yes, but I'm fortunate to have been able to spend 32 years with that lady. I mean, there's so much that she's brought to my life. And when I write all those stories, then I'm happy. And then people see that and they go, he just seems to be handling everything so beautiful. The reason is because the stories I'm writing are different than the stories that most people would write. And that's why they're in a depressed state, because they choose to write the depressing stories.
Interesting. What do you do when you feel a bit low, or you're missing her, or you're going through one of those harder times? So it's easy to say you think positive thoughts and things like that, but if somebody was genuinely struggling with that, to flick the switch on that, how do you personally go about turning something where you're feeling very low, you're having a hard time, back to, okay, there's a reason for this and I can create my future, and it's what I do with these emotions and these.
Right. And I think you just hit it on the head. It's come to grips with the fact that you're controlling that. And that's why I said that, understand that your emotions, you're creating this emotion. So when you learn to take control of that and quit blaming other people or the situation, and understand I'm feeling this way because I'm choosing to. And Tony Robbins uses the thing, he says, like physiology. If you just got up and started moving differently, for most people, that changes your emotion. That's why they'll tell you to go out and walk. You know what I mean? Just get up and maybe just go walk. That interrupts your pattern of where you're sitting, because you can't sit there in a depressed state, continue to write depressing stories and expect to get happy. It's just not going to happen. It's like, so get up, move a little bit, start breathing, recognize the stories that you're writing, and start writing different stories. Just kind of like I said with her, I can sit there and write the stories and be totally sad. Or I can sit there and say, man, this would have been awesome. But I know, Terry, you sitting back, you're enjoying this, just like I am, you even got better seat than I do. You know what I'm saying? So you could probably see a lot further out there than I do. But you see what I'm saying? But because of the story that I'm writing, all of a sudden you feel better. Why? Because your body can't do both. It can't be depressed and happy at the same time. You got to give it a choice. Why people choose depression, it's a bad habit. But the key is, and for some people, it's going to take a little while. You may not be able to go from depressed to happy. You may have to go from depressed to frustrated. You might have to go from frustrated to just angry. You see what I'm saying? But you keep changing the story till it gets better and better, till at least you're at a point, if nothing else, at least I'm not sad. You know what I'm saying? I may not even get all the way to the happy, excited, jumping for joy, but at least now I'm no longer in a depressed state.
Yeah. And I don't know about for you, Ron, but for me as a female, I can flick between. I can be super happy, totally content with things one minute, and then really low the next minute, up and down. I think it's, I don't know, maybe a little bit more of an emotional thing, a bit feminine perhaps, but I don't think it is, once it starts to get better, that it stays better. I think it's something we daily work on more than daily. Like I can flip 20 different emotions in one single day. I think it's something that we have to continually work on.
I think you got to work on it, but I think it's a human thing, because you can have people, and I've heard the analogy, and it's funny that you could sit here and argue, like you and I, we could be sitting here just going back and forth, just really mad at each other. And then the phone rings and we pick up the phone and say, hello, how you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you make that shift? It's because we do control our emotions. We have programmed ourselves that it's just beyond my control. No, it's not. You know what I'm saying? You change according to when you feel you need to change. Yeah. And so you have to become better at saying, depression doesn't move me where I want to go. So that when I see it come, I need to start interrupting that pattern immediately. And like I said, it may take a while, you know what I'm saying? Because right now it's a habit.
Exactly. We've got to change that habit.
Correct. You got to make that habit become, who was it? Marissa Peer was saying you have to make the unknown become known and the known become unknown. Oh, no, it's familiar. That was the word she used. Familiar. You have to make the familiar become unfamiliar and the unfamiliar familiar. Yeah. And so right now, depression is familiar to you. You got to turn that into where it becomes unfamiliar and switch that and make being happy familiar to you.
Yeah, I love this. I love creating new normals in my life and all areas of my life. Yes. How much do you think that gratitude plays a part in this?
It's major. It's major. And I tell people, think about it. If you're a parent and, or just anybody, who do you really want to give to? A person that's grateful or somebody that's expecting? Or somebody that thinks things are owed to them? You know, like you give a kid a gift and they're just like, this ain't even what I wanted. I wanted it. That's not a person you want to really give stuff to because they're not even grateful for what they got. And I said, what makes us think, you know, and again, I don't tell people what to believe from a spiritual and that kind of stuff. But if you flip the script and said, if you're not grateful, why would your Heavenly Father, the universe, vibration, or whoever, why would they want to give you more when you can't even be grateful for what you have? Because you're in an ungrateful state of being. So no matter what you're giving, you're going to stay ungrateful. Why? Because you're going to find something wrong with whatever else you receive because it's your mindset. And it's back to what we were talking about before. You got to make that shift, you know what I mean? And become grateful. And then more things start to flow to you. Why? Because anything that shows up, you're grateful that it showed up.
Love it. Absolutely love it. If you could summarize in 1 or 2 sentences, what is your main message that you personally want to share with the world?
Getting people to fall in love again with the person in the mirror and start to live your dreams and desires. Because I believe we're all here to walk out our own path, and none of us were put here to walk out other people's paths. And unfortunately, that's what usually ends up happening. The old saying, most of us are born, well, we're all born originals, but most people die as copies.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say that your relationship book isn't really about relationships? It's more about the individual?
Exactly. And that's why I said some people miss the title. They said, get rid of your problem. They go, oh, are you talking about my marriage? And I said, no. And I said, not your partner. Me and you are partners. This doesn't have to be an intimate relationship. Your partners are anyone that you have a relationship with. And but most people interpret it instantly. I'm talking about a married couple. And it's like, no. Get you together and all of your relationships will start to work.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I'm very excited to get a hold of your book. So when will your book be released, Ron?
We're shooting for December. Right now, we're promoting it, doing pre-orders right now. And I'm actually out doing like with this, going out and doing more broadcasts, more speaking engagements to start to really try to promote it. So that's really what's going on right now. But we're shooting for December.
That's great. So we'll put all of your links into here so that our listeners can go and find that book. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on it. So thank you so much, Ron, for your time today. And yeah, this has been great talking to you. I'm really excited that, you know, I can hear you've got so much passion. You're so positive about things, and you can just hear the love for your wife, even though she's moved on now. Just the love, and I can hear the hardship as well. There must have been so many hard times, but I really admire how you've turned it around. You've made actual choices on how you want your future to look like through that. So well done with what you're doing. We'll let our listeners know as soon as your book is ready. So thank you for coming on, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
That sounds good. I look forward to that.
Great. Thank you, Ron.
All right. Thank you.